I think you could still have a big market approach to doing things in a smaller community.
I can't wrap my head around everything that you do.
I like the adrenaline rush that directing gives you.
That's a quarter of a century, everybody.
The band's called Twisted Chrome.
Nobody talks to you about that in journalism school, do they?
I don't think so.
An inside look at the people in front of and behind the cameras at NTV on this episode of Inside NTV.
Thank you once again for joining us for this week's new episode of Inside NTV, the show here on YouTube and podcast that we try to learn more about the folks here at NTV, both on camera and off camera, as well as some folks that used to be at NTV to check out what they're doing now. But I've got a guy who's here right now. And I said this when I talked to Gary.
Yeah.
That I kind of don't hurt my arm patting myself in the back, but I had a chance to hire
you did.
I don't take all the credit. Dave gets a whole bunch, and obviously you do for coming here,
Yeah.
and everybody else behind the scenes that has a part of that too. But I was in that position to help get you here. First of all, before we get into all your personal dealings, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
Weekend Sports Anchor.
Oh, the Weekend Sports Anchor. You know me. You guys have probably seen me a ton before. I was always tag out Trey, Redfield, NTV Sports, right? So basically how it all started and everything with this. So it all began in February. I told myself, when January came around of 2023, because that's when I graduated from Syracuse in May of that year. I told myself, I said, hey, it's go time. Let's find jobs. Where are we going to go? You're going to apply to anywhere and everywhere. If your life's going to change before your eyes, here we are. So it was February, and I just driven down to Westchester County in New York from Syracuse. I had gotten back from Clemson the night before because I was covering a basketball game down there. We, meaning Syracuse, had played Clemson. I'm going down to the city for an award ceremony. So my family made a weekend out of it, and I had to meet them down at NYC. And I got an email before I got on the Metro from some guy named Dave Greek saying like, hey, loved your stuff, would love to chat with you. I'm like, hey, I appreciate it. I'm about to be busy here for this weekend. What's the time frame? And he immediately emails back. He says, I can do right now. I call him up, and the entire train ride from Rye, New York, all the way down to Grand Central, we chatted, and he had me hooked. And what stood out about this whole process is that, NTV always kept calling, always kept reaching out and stuff like that. And appreciation for me is one of the biggest things in life. So when it came down to other stations that, had been looking at me, other stations that, didn't really give me the light of day, whether it was a couple of interviews and ghosting me, NTV was always there. And that's why I'm here today. And that's how you got me. That's how you get to see me almost every single night. So.
And I don't want to get into the stuff
we
don't need to talk about, but there have been other stations that wanted Trey since he's been here, and he's still here. So
yes.
that's awesome.
That's a blessing in itself. That's why I'm here, man.
And at some point in the future, maybe not too far distant future, you're going to be in some gigantic network job somewhere.
So you tell me I get to do a second one of these, or
maybe?
Oh,
yeah.
okay, good.
As long as it's still going. So you talk about graduating from Syracuse.
Yes, sir.
But you are from North Carolina, correct?
Right. Yeah, so I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. Holly Springs originally, if you're from that area, it's like, oh, where in Raleigh? And so that's where you go a little bit deeper. Lived in a couple of towns in North Carolina. I was born in Fort Bragg, grew up on Carolina Lakes for a year, moved to Rhode Island for the second year of my life, and then couple of years in Virginia, and then since that I've been a North Carolinian since 2005. Lived in a town called Fuquay Varina. Ooh. Some people pronounce it as Fuquay Varina. It's because it's spelled Fuquay.
Okay.
So it's like it could be anything. And then Varina, Varina. So it's like I've never heard of that before at all. So lived there for most of my life, and then moved a town over to Holly Springs when my mother wanted to downsize a little bit. So my mom's side is in Holly Springs. My dad was in Fuquay, but he just moved down to the beach in North Carolina. So no matter where I am, North Carolina's always been home. Everyone always asks me, it's like, did you grow up a Carolina fan or a Duke fan? I'm like, prepare to be amazed, sir. I grew up an NC State fan. So, it's like when you see the red suit, that's kind of like a reason why I wanted to get one. It's like I grew up a State fan, and, it's got to be symbolic a little bit, right? But But yeah, so I've been in North Carolina most of my life, and the goal one day is to hopefully make it back there, whether it's a short-term stay or I'm back in there forever, because it's always been my calling, that place. So
That's really cool.
yes, sir.
We're getting a lot of yes sirs, and I'm going to reference that because you mentioned Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
So I want to dive a little bit into the military background.
Yeah. So no, so a lot of my family is in the military. If you know me very well, I've told you before, I've made some sort of, you like hear family, like my references sometimes. It's like you hear big guns, boom, boom. My sister's in field artillery.
Oh, wow.
That's her division in the Army. So it's if you hear me ever say beat Navy, it's because I have 5 West Pointers in my family. My sister was one of them. My mother, stepdad, and then 2 of my uncles, who they all went to West Point. My father was a Green Beret, 21 years in the Army, and I believe he did 6 or 5 tours in Iraq.
Wow.
And another in Afghanistan. So it's like that's why like all the patriotic stuff means a lot to me. Like, you can see me like wearing an American flag pin on, on big holidays and, big days of remembrance and stuff like that. Like if you were watching this week, it's like I was wearing an American flag pin the days that I was on leading up to 9/11, because it's like, that's just who I am. That's how I roll. So they all wanted to be in the military because they didn't know what they wanted to be. My mom, dad, and sister. And then there was me. It was like, I want to do this. I want to go into broadcasting. I found this stuff when I was around 5 years old. Had I not been wanting to do this, I probably would have, cared a little bit more about my grades in high school, done a little bit more on the academic side, because I had all the clubs and stuff like that. My grades weren't as the best. Like my test taking, never been a good test taker. So it's like, had I not known what I wanted to be, sure, I would have tried extra harder to get into West Point and continue tradition. But Syracuse was calling, and that's where I am now. So it all worked out at the end of the day. I like being the oddball, you know that.
It definitely worked out, that's for sure. Syracuse, as many people probably know, one of the top at least 3 journalism schools.
Yes,
sir. That, Missouri, and Northwestern. Arizona State's kind of in there somewhere.
USC too, But
USC, sure.
You know my bias. I mean, I say Syracuse is top 2, and it's not 2.
You got Mike Tirico and like Bob Costas floating around.
Iron Eagle too.
There you go.
There was a couple of like names that are up and up like recently. Drew Carter, Noah Eagle, both class of 2019, and Noah Eagle is Ian's son. So the tradition definitely rings free there for sure. And it all began. It's funny. It all began. Marty Glickman, right?
Yeah, I know the name.
It all began with him. Because he was the one that got into everyone knows him as one of the guys that got taken off the 36 relay team with Jesse Owens, and he was supposed to get a gold medal but never did. Whoever was on that team was going to blow them out of the water because the Americans were just that fast. Besides the point, though, it's Glickman. He went to Syracuse for I believe it was after the Olympics. He went there for broadcasting, and he started being like the radio voice and stuff like that. You hear radio dial when people call games. That's because Marty Glickman was the first one to come up with it. So a lot of names, of course. Dick Clark, Bob Costas, Glickman, Mike Tirico, Andrew Catalan. Iron Eagle, the list goes on and on. And the fact that I even have a chance to continue that tradition is a blessing in itself.
We've mentioned a lot of play-by-play voices there. You've done play-by-play.
I love it.
You currently do some on KRVN.
Here and there, here and there. And it's fun. It's fun. That's the thing. It's I'm okay with, doing this because it's there's so many good people here and stuff like that. Now play-by-play is something that comes around. Yeah, 100%. I'm in because it lets me get to know athletes even more. Sure. My off days are normally Wednesday and Thursday, right? When I get to call a game, it's like, hey, it's still me. I just get to know your team a little bit more. So it's the fact that I can go out and do something that I love in a way to get to know people better. That's really cool in itself too. It's yes, I can do it for the money and make extra bucks and stuff like that, but it's I reached out to, our friends at KRVN is because I wanted to help. I still want to do that stuff, and maybe it comes calling down the road. Maybe after here, it's going to play-by-play. You never know.
Sure.
You never know. So that's why I continue to do it. It wasn't just in college. I had to do it. It's I love it. I love it. So
What is one of your favorite things or one of your least favorite things, whichever direction we would go,
Okay.
about the current position that you have, the job you have, the day in, day out, people may not know exactly what all you do.
Right.
I mean, they see Saturday, Sunday, Monday when you're anchoring.
Right.
So they understand that, but they may not know exactly what you're doing in the other days, or how much running you're having to do, and how much driving you're having to do, all that.
So favorite part about this job, I would say, is it's the fact that I'm myself still. What you see when you see me on camera, you're going to see me off camera unless I'm like absolutely locked in trying to shoot a game or something like that. Like you may see me, I'm looking like a coach on the sideline, like walking up and walking back and forth with my camera on. But it's the cool part about my job is that I can be myself around the people that come up to me and they tell me how much they appreciate watching, which means the world to me. Like at Arapahoe this Friday, the amount of people that came up, it's like, we watch all the time, pump the C tonight. It's like, that means a lot because for some people, that's all they have. That's all they have. They may not get other stations and stuff like that. Like, especially for our friends out west, it's like, who do you get? It's like, we get you guys and that's about it. So, when I hear stuff like that, it's a blessing. But the fact that I can be myself whenever, you hear the tink of the red light when we go on, I can be myself, off camera, working with you guys, what you see here is what you see out there as well. And that's what people see too, whether I'm at my gym in Holdridge, or whether I'm out shooting games. The fact that I can be myself and, people appreciate that. And some people may not, and that's okay. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, hate me or love me, you still watch, right? The fact that I can be myself is the best part about this thing.
Trey is a ball of energy, if you haven't already figured that out.
A ball of energy.
Literally.
It's just slightly deflated, but still a ball of energy.
More deflated than you are when it comes to energy.
Yes, there you go. Perfect.
So I'm extremely proud of the crew that we currently have in our sports department. Darren Winberg is sports director, is great. Trey, and then Matt Frieda, who I hope to talk to down the line for one of these interviews.
Right.
It's just a really neat combination of the three of you guys. I think you make a really good team. Matt is on his own most of the time out in Lincoln.
Right.
He does a great job with the Huskers, but because he's not here in the building, he's in the Lincoln Bureau.
Yeah.
You and Darren make a dynamic duo.
That's the thing. Like, people enjoy that so much, and it goes back to the being myself thing. I had a couple people ask me on Saturday after our sports extra, the way we have fun and stuff like that. Someone was like, a couple people asked me, it's like, you and Darren on TV. Is that you and Darren off camera? I looked at him, I said, hell yes. What you see is what you get 24/7. We're a dynamic duo, and we found a way to click. And I think we found a way to click, in my first interviews. It's okay if I talk about this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my first interview, this is one of my favorite stories just ever. My first interview, I didn't even know that it was happening. I got an email at 5:00 on a Monday. So which it's fair to say, like, I'm not going to look at my email, especially like me in the spring of 2023 on Mondays. Those are my internship days with WSTM, our Sinclair friends in Syracuse. I interned with them because I got really close with Tommy Sladek, who was the sports director there at the time, and I got an internship, and that's why I wanted to take the Sinclair route. It's like, I know everything. These guys are going to appreciate it. And like, I hopped right into iNews like I did, and our system that we use for rundowns and stuff like that. And I got an email. Apparently I did. They were looking to do Wednesday. I never responded because I didn't see it. Wednesday comes around. I'm about to walk out of the gym in Syracuse, and I get a call from this number. I'm like, 308. Who is this? I call him. I say hello. I think I either said hello or I was like, "This is Trey." I normally, when I don't know a number, you're gonna hear me say, "This is Trey." So he's like, "Hey, Trey," Wags is on the other on the other end of the call. He's like, "Just making sure you saw my email about an interview." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I didn't see this. Let me look at my email." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, why I didn't see this? I'm really sorry, sir. I had my internship on Mondays, but you know what?" And so Wags cuts me off. He's like, "Oh no, we can reschedule." I immediately stopped him. I'm like, "No, let's do this right now. I have my AirPods. I'll hop on a Zoom meeting on my phone. Let's get after it." 5 minutes later, we're doing a Zoom interview, sweaty long sleeves and everything, and it's just, I feel terrible. I email Wags and Darren. I'm like, I'm so sorry again. This is really bad. Darren emailed me back, said, yeah, good luck with everything. I'm like, yeah, no way I'm getting this job. Not a chance. Not a chance. My mother's like nervous too. She gets my aunt into it. My aunt, which is my godmother, and it's like it's mayhem. I'm like, oh, there's no way I get this. No way I get this. You're all sweaty and everything. You think it's not gonna go your way. Tuesday, the ensuing Tuesday comes around. It's that same phone number, and he's like, yeah, we'd like to offer you a job. I'm like, you do? Like, what? So if you're ever slightly unprepared for an interview, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Just be yourself, which is what I was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it leads us to this, where it's like, you can be dealt any hand at a blackjack table, but it's up to you to find a way to win. So, and it works. It worked. That's one of my favorite stories, man.
And my side of that story is when he tells me, and he explained it, and now he's at the gym and he accepts doing the interview on the spot.
Yeah.
He's prepared for, but he's not prepared to do it like right that minute.
Right. Like, I still knew everything. I still knew everything about this station and stuff.
Oh yeah. So that what I'm saying is you had everything figured out, but you weren't like gonna.
Right.
Yeah,
it wasn't the front file folder.
Sure.
On in the cabinet.
So I get Darren on. We do the whole interview with Darren and I talking to Trey.
Yep.
And I believe I told this to Darren, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I kept it to myself. I don't know. But I told Trey this afterwards. Trey earned bonus points with me.
Yeah.
Because he was willing to do it when he really wasn't totally prepared.
Yeah.
And that impressed me more because he didn't go, oh, can we do it next week or can we do it tomorrow? Which would have actually been fine.
Which would have been okay, but it's like...
I wouldn't have been upset by that, and it would have still turned out probably the same way. But I took it as, okay, this guy's ready.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't need to go home and study up, and I didn't need him to be wearing a shirt and tie for a Zoom interview.
Because you've already seen me in a shirt and tie.
Exactly.
That's what you told me.
Exactly. And so in my head, I'm like, this is great. Like, this guy's willing to do this, all this stuff, and we don't have to talk about what was in the interview necessarily, but you didn't just answer questions. You were open and honest, and it was just a very, very good conversation.
Yeah.
And it really came off to me like, okay, this is the guy we need to go get.
That's the goal. If you may be seeing this as like a high school kid and stuff like that, doing interviews with potentially colleges. If you find the way to turn anything into a conversation, you're doing it right. It's like I tell all the high schoolers and college guys that I interview, it's just like, don't worry about that. That's an eavesdropper. It's just you and I talking ball. And so that's the cool part about it. So if you can treat any interview, whether it's formal, informal for a job, and you're just talking, having a simple conversation like this one, it means you're giving yourself a shot. Because what are you doing? Mm-hmm. You're being yourself. You're being yourself. That's super important.
And that's instructions for interviews or for on air or for almost anything.
Anything. For anybody too.
Because me, and this is kind of turning into more of an instructional video. But
it's my advice from me to you, basically.
For me as a manager, I don't want somebody to be putting on airs in an interview and then they show up and it's totally somebody different.
Right.
I could tell that Trey was Trey, and here we are.
Yep.
What did you know about Nebraska before you came here?
I knew about Lincoln and Omaha. To be honest with you. I knew that Nebraska football has always been a very, prideful tradition. 5 national championships, of course. The teams of the 90s were absolutely insane. That 95 team, I quickly came around to learn. I'm like, oh, they won a national championship. And then, oh, damn, this might be like one of the best teams ever. Because that 95 team was electric. And everyone thought, in that national championship game that they were going to lose to Florida. I was like, no, they thumped Florida instead, right? So, I knew about Omaha, obviously, because of the College World Series and stuff like that, the stuff that was thrown out there nationally. I quickly came to learn about Kearney, though, when you guys came calling and stuff like that. So I didn't know too much. Didn't have any family there or anything like that. But what I quickly learned is that there are a bunch of really good people here, and this is a really great place to grow. So, since I've been here, I'm in the best physical shape of my life. I got a bunch of really good friends. I've seen myself grow, here at this station. But I've also, I've gone to learn more about myself too. I found a love for, traveling and going places again. I may have told people before, but it's like one of my goals in life is to make it to 50 states by the age of 30. And since I've been here, I've gotten to go to both the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri. Got to go down to Kansas City for MIAA media days. Kansas, for the rodeos down in Phillipsburg, Denver trips here and there, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, like all these different places, because it's just like, Nebraska is in the middle of America. Everywhere is about the same. Everyone's about the same time for stuff like that, right? So, I didn't know much when I showed up, but the amount that I have learned here is probably the most that I've learned in my entire life, and I've only been here since June of 2023.
That's true.
So, which is crazy.
And you're relatively young still.
Yeah, I'm 23 years old.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that too much, because it's just like you don't want to like come off that way as like young and inexperienced and stuff like that. It's like, and I've had people tell me to not sell myself short because of a number.
Sure.
Because like that's why I'm the whole like be myself type of be. Like I've asked people in interviews where it's like, why do you want someone as young as me and as wild ball and as ambitious as I am? Like, look, I'm at the time it was like, look, sir, I'm 21 years old. It's like, why not go get someone that has a couple of years of professional experience? And they're like, it's a great question, but you never have to ask us that because we like you for just who you are. In this case, it's just like you don't ever sell yourself short. Mm-hmm. So like, yes, I'm still young, but it's like, I can do just as much as the next man. And that's why I always tell myself every day. It's like, don't look at yourself because you're a number and stuff like that. As much as I embrace like that young,
sure,
like that kid mindset. Like Colleen gave me a nickname for calling me the kid, where it's like, you know who else got called the kid? Ken Griffey Jr. So it's like, yeah, I am the kid. But with that, it's with the with just being young, it's like you've done just as much as the next man. Show that.
I want to be careful because I've worked with a lot of really, really, really good news, sports, and weather folks here at NTV and in Hastings in my previous stop.
Yeah.
Here at NTV, I think I've worked with two people who right off the bat, literally coming in within a week, the first thing that I see them do on air, I'm impressed. Yeah. Because everybody gets to that point. But there was a fellow by the name of Brett McMillan. People out there watching may have remember him. Hopefully I'll catch up with him down the line. He spent 2 years here in your role as weekend sports anchor and went directly from there to the St. Louis Cardinals. Still works for the Valley Sports Station over there, literally for his dream job, hometown team. Mm-hmm. Trey's the other one.
I appreciate that.
Literally walk in, and granted, you had real life experience before you got here.
Right.
You would talk about how young you are. That doesn't matter. Right. You were doing play-by-play stuff, traveling around parts of the eastern part of the country.
Traveling the ACC.
Exactly.
That's my conference. That's my conference. I grew up on the ACC. You grew up on the Big 12. And where does it all lead to? Right to the Big 10. You were saying, I'm sorry.
No, but so you are another one of those guys who comes in and literally right off the bat, it's like, this dude's good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's fantastic. And not only is it great that you started good, but you keep getting better. Yeah. And you can tell that despite your youth, I suppose, which is still a good thing.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm a little older than you.
It's fun to be young. It's fun to be young.
But you can't tell that you're only that age when you're doing your job, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel lucky that you're still here. I feel lucky that hopefully you'll be here at least for a while longer.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm going to be like, hey, that guy on ESPN or Fox Sports or taking Rob Stone's job or
Lefko's, because he was in Hastings with you. Right?
Adam Lefko was in Hastings with me. He is now
Matt Schick.
NBA NTV. Matt Schick was here at NTV. His interviews on our YouTube channel.
Wait, you interviewed Schick for this?
I did.
Oh, sick. Let's go.
He's on here, and he's obviously at ESPN now. Great guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's like I see you on a similar trajectory. Mm-hmm. I think, you keep your eye on the ball, which I think you will, and I think you'll get there. Whether it'll be in 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I mean,
Appreciate
whatever you
that.
want to do. But I think you'll get there. Is there? I don't want to keep you too much longer.
We can do this all day. I love this. This is fun.
Is there a? I don't want to pick a Kearney, Grand Island, or Hastings. No offense to our Tri-City viewers.
What's my favorite Tri-City? Could you imagine?
Well, let's not go there. But can you maybe not a favorite? Can you pick a certain small town that we cover in Nebraska that sticks out for a reason, whatever that reason is?
That's a good question.
Like,
that's a really good question.
Like on the day that we're taping this, I actually just got done talking about how you went live at Arapahoe.
Yep.
Arapahoe's got 1,000 people. They don't get a lot of live reports for something good.
Hey, when their football team's good, we go.
But is there a town, that goes, oh, that thing that was really cool?
That like that person's in
Sure,
our town, like that's
sure.
awesome. Arapahoe was one of those places that had that. And it's when you get to go to small towns like that, and when you get a call from Darren saying, hey, you're our game of the week. It's in not in one of the Tri-Cities. It's like, cool. We're going somewhere different. Like, let's go talk about how good Arapahoe is, because that's a damn good team.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool getting to see that part of town, because I'd never been before in the first place. When it comes to small towns, and I'm just there all the time, it's you hear me say this, the FKC means more, right? It does for me, because it's just like the people at Overton and at SCM just are really, really, really good to me. I cover them all the time. I know a lot of their coaches. That just the feedback that I get from them means the world to me. And it goes back to that first point that I made about appreciation. It's like when I remember an Overton signing day, there were 4 girls that I had covered every single season that were signing. Ashlyn Farrell, Addie McCarter, Jolie Ryan, and Natalie Wood. All signing to play a few different sports. It's like they sign away. I'm the only person that's there. And if you see the interviews, it's just like me interviewing these 4 girls, but everyone behind me is watching this happen, taking photos and shooting videos and stuff like that. And Braden Fleischman was there too for his signing day too. So it was 5 like these really good kids, and just everyone's watching. Because like they care, like the jokes that I make, they say what you said last night was so funny. SCM's the same way too. I've talked a lot about Ryan Arbuthnot, Mike O'Neill, like it's those families as well that like come up to me and say like, hey, we appreciate you showing up. It's like you drive through these towns. It's like Overton, however many people. I could be wrong, but there are only 3 figures on those signs, but everyone's watching.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's what means the world to me. It's like I get to see, not just good athletes and them show out and be good at what they do, but I get to see them grow as well as people. I get to know them a little bit as well, and that's what's really cool to me. I get to be someone that can offer like pieces of advice from time to time. It's like I never had that because I'm the youngest in my family. So the fact that I can like give back in a different way instead of just shooting their sporting events and stuff like that, it's like telling their stories and just offering them advice in the next chapter of their life. That's really cool. And I think the most that I've seen that anywhere is Overton and at SCM, because I'm there all the time. So I'm glad I finally got to say that like to a camera, because it's like because very well that I'm there all the time, but it's like legitimately like Overton, SCM, and then also I would say Gothenburg as well.
Okay.
Alexis and I she's one of my best friends here, and Alexis has told me a lot. It's like, dude, you need to go to Gothenburg as much as you can. I'm like, why Gothenburg? She's like, dude, they love you there. They do? What? No way. Because I don't get to go to Gothenburg as much. But
The
Swedes. Love the Swedes. Whenever I get a chance to go, whenever I get a chance to cover Gothenburg, anything, especially Gothenburg cross country, like that's really cool because those folks care. They're all we got, and they're honestly all they need, because I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing those guys as much as they enjoy seeing me. So
I have at least one more question.
Yeah.
So you don't get to go to a lot of Husker games because you're kind of here
right
on Saturdays most of the time, but you have been, right? How do you compare a home Husker football game at Memorial Stadium to, say, NC State or
Syracuse?
Perhaps the artist formerly known as the Carrier Dome.
Ah, yes, the Carrier Dome. I'm glad you mentioned, like the part where it's like I don't get to go to as many games. I'm okay with that, You know, I've always been a big like what's for the team type of guy. Like I grew up a Boston sports fan because my dad grew up in New England, and I was a huge. I still am a huge Patriots fan. And you know, my childhood was Tom Brady taking less money to bring in guys like Wes Welker, Randy Moss. You know, Julian Edelman did the same thing, where it's like take less money for guys to continue to win championships and be successful. So, you know, the fact that I don't get to go to all these games, I'm not sitting back in Kearney pouting, you know. Someone's got to do the job here, and that's what I do. But with that part, you were mentioning the you know, the Husker football scenes in comparison to Syracuse. Wow. It's, again, I respectfully say it's not even close. Nebraska being much higher, Syracuse being, you know, kind of in the middle. Like the dome gets loud. The dome does get loud, but it's like at the same time, when I was there, they weren't as successful. So there was like points where it was really loud. Didn't really happen too often. It's funny you mentioned NC State. I feel like the only time it really happened was when we were 5-0, on the verge of being 6-0, ranked. NC State ranked higher than us, and we had a chance to, you know, and we got to beat them, and, you know, students stormed the field. I was working the game. I was a sideline reporter for our radio station, but that's the loudest I ever heard it. Memorial Stadium, which I will be at on Friday against Illinois. I might be down on the field. I may be up top. It's going to be scenes. It's going to be freaking insane. 400 sellout. Like the fact that it's the electric factory that it is. It's really cool. Like, yes, I knew about Nebraska football and all that stuff. You know, the question that you mentioned about me knowing about the state of Nebraska before getting here. It's like, yeah, I knew about this, but then when I showed them, like, oh, this is their team. They don't have anyone else, and they don't need anybody else. So when you get to see that in person too, is super, super cool. When I go back to Memorial Stadium, you know, for one of these games, I may end up shedding a tear because I thought last year would have been my last season. You know, there were folks looking around for me and, you know, and my services to maybe move up within Sinclair.
Sure.
I didn't, you know, there was a point in time, there were points in times in the summer where it was like, this may be my last week here. And some people may not know it. I didn't know it. And it worked out to where it's like, I'm still here and I'm going to make the most of what I have. And the fact that I even get to see Memorial Stadium, probably the best environment in college football, is super, super cool.
And the Illinois game, you got to go with Dave, or you went with Dave.
Volleyball day.
Yes. In Nebraska, which I was excited to make sure you two guys went to that. Darren and Matt the same day or the same week went to the Minnesota game.
Yes.
Up in Minneapolis. But you guys were at the piece of history that may never happen again. 92,000 people. You know, I'll leave you on this. What was that experience like? Because I was not there. Dave,
a blessing.
You were.
You know, you got to see history before your eyes. It was my first time ever at Memorial Stadium, that volleyball day in Nebraska. And, you know, it's like the scene in Gladiator. You know, Gladiator is one of my favorite movies ever. You know, I watch the Gladiator 2 trailer like every other day because I'm just excited to have it back. Cars is my favorite movie. Gladiator, though, is in the top 5. You look at my MacBook screen, I got Lightning McQueen on there. But, you know, it's the scene in Gladiator where Maximus and the rest of the gladiators, they run into the Coliseum for the first time. What's the first thing they do? They get up and they look around. They're just looking around and seeing like, oh my gosh, like how did man build this? It's like it was the same thing with Memorial Stadium. Like, oh my goodness, this is a football stadium as big as it is, but we're shooting a volleyball match tonight. And I've done a lot of cool stuff at Syracuse. You mentioned me traveling to all these different places around the ACC, and thankfully I did. You know, I've been to Pitt, Louisville, Notre Dame. Went to Wake Forest. I got to do a game at home, you know, Clemson, Tallahassee. I went to Boston College. It's like I went to all these different games. I went to Yankee Stadium for our bowl game my senior year. But nothing, absolutely nothing compares to getting to go to Volleyball Day in Nebraska. You know, the fact that what sticks out to me about that the most is because, you know, I had the former boss with me. You know, I take Dave's word, you know, to heart. Because like it means like his words mean something. He's been the boss before. He was one of the guys that hired me. So it was really important for me to, you know, like show out the way I did because I was mainly the sports guy for it. He was there for, you know, the community-based type beat. And, you know, I just learned a lot that day. And it meant a lot to me as well, because I had people here who said, hey, we trust you, not even 90 days into this professional job that you have, to go to Lincoln and shoot a game where 100,000 people are going to be there, whether it's in the stadium or within the vicinity. Have fun, figure it out. So, like, you know, so the fact that I just got to do that was super, super cool. And it's something I'm never going to take for granted. And if like, you know, 5 years down the road from now, if that's still the coolest thing I've done, I'd be content. I would be content.
That's awesome. Trey, we could do this for hours.
We could do this for hours.
My battery's going to wear out.
That's
Trey Redfield, thank you so much. I'll let you get going. You guys will check out again another new episode of Inside NTV right here again.